Our K2 winner is Dylan Joyner from NB Mills. I know Dylan's here. Dylan, can you come up front, please? Our third through fifth grade winner is Sarah Chavez from Cottle Creek Elementary. Is Sarah here? Yep. Middle school winner is Trinity TV Paw from Lakeshore Middle. Look at this, I got everybody. And Erin Sherrill is our high school winner from South Iredell High School. So we have these wonderfully talented students and these wonderful art teachers in our district. Anybody? I don't see any of our art teachers here. They didn't make it, but they have fabulous art teachers. So a special acknowledgement and thank you to those instructors who continue to go above and beyond in everything they do. Thanks, you guys. So we have certificates and a prize and also your framed artwork. So since this is a superintendent's art contest, I'm hoping Mr. Johnson will come down and present you with your awards.
Susie, I wish you would have put the pictures of their card things on.
That was a failing.
Well, maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Good suggestion. And then your prize and your artwork. Stand here until I get a picture.
We will shift gears now to our non-consent agenda, and we'll move to item A, which is the refocus for the VPAC program. Dr. Melanie Taylor.
Yes, Dr. Cash, members of the board, and Mr. Johnson, we did bring to you a presentation in November sharing with you information on moving forward with refocusing VPAC to more of a STEAM-focused school. So we're adding some science, technology, and math, engineering and math courses in addition to the arts component that they've had there in the past. We're proposing doing that based on looking at the number of graduates and the areas that those students are graduating from at VPAC, in addition to looking at careers that are available and the need in the community. So along with refocusing the programming and expanding the programming at VPAC, we also would like to change the name at VPAC to better kind of just demonstrate the course offerings at that school. So based on your request, we did put some information out and run a survey with the two names that we had proposed. We had a very small turnout, very small response rate. 62% of those folks responded. 62 responded. 37% or 23 votes were for the Crossroads Arts and Science Early College, and the remaining 39 votes were for the Iredell-Statesville schools, or Iredell-Statesville Arts and Science Early College. We did share some concerns about the Iredell-Statesville Arts and Science Early College because we do have two early colleges within the district, and if that has the Iredell-Statesville label on it, then it kind of appears that there's only one, or some people might have confusion. So our recommendation would still be to move forward with the Crossroads Arts and Science Early College, though that was the preference of the staff at the school. and administration. We certainly will entertain any questions that you may have.
The staff vote was one vote difference.
It
is
was a
it?
narrow vote. Yes, sir, it was.
I understand your concern about Iredell-Statesville. It just bothers me. Don't particularly like the name of Crossroads due to some other. We have a private school called Crossroads. I don't think it identifies us like we should be, but the fact that it seems to have already been done and that the name is already being used, it would probably be counterproductive for the board to vote to change it. I just wish that it bothers me that we're seeing this already on the website and on posters, and they're receiving mail by this. I would hope that.
I'm not aware of any mail, but I do know that they did share the proposed name change, and I don't think it was clearly communicated that it was proposed in their marketing and conversations with the middle schools. And I understand your concern there as well.
They have received packages with that name, that because they were not known where to deliver to. But you know, this isn't a fight that anybody. It's not a fight for anything. Just if you know y'all want to do something that the majority of the people you ask do not want to do, that bothers me a little bit. But if this is what that everybody thinks, it's certainly not something we're going to fight over.
Wait a minute, let's not go to Abilene. If you're familiar with that story, picking up on what Mr. Page says, we've had a discussion back in November about this. We had a discussion last week about this, and we were asking, because of a policy that we have, to take it to the people who are interested in the name of that particular facility. Now, when I look at the result of this just leaves the water completely muddied. I mean, in the first place, that one that we say we're going to use has 23 votes, 37%. That one we say we're not going to use has 63%. But beyond that, we had 62 respondents. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there are more students than that at VPAC. There are more students than that in that whole area over there, which means there are more parents than that could have responded. Now, that's a short period of time in a week to come up with this. So to me, this doesn't override, and it leaves it in an unclear situation to change the name on a facility with this type of response. I'm not sure is what we want to do. To me, it's hey, wait a minute. I mean, I'm just asking the question. We're going to change the name based on what we got from 62 and what we had to start with, and that wasn't, I mean, that just totally, it doesn't clarify it, in other words. Is that, I mean, I'm just asking.
It doesn't clarify.
What do you, somebody else say something?
It bothers me to go to school on Friday and go to school today, and you see posters already up for Crossroads, and they're going to have a meeting tomorrow night, and they've already named it. So what are we doing here? I mean, we didn't name it, and the board and the superintendent didn't change the name, so who's already named this?
Well, the school did ask if they could communicate that they were proposing a name change. And I did tell them that yes, as long as they explained that it was a proposal. And I'm not sure that the word proposal got put on all of their literature. I do think the name that the principal and the staff came up with of Crossroads was selected on their part to reflect the Statesville community. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's part of the slogan of the community. I see it on the signage for the interstates out here that Iredell County is the crossroads of tomorrow. So I think they tried to select something that would bring the community in on this new name change. And they also talked about this is a crossroads for the children that are making the transition from middle school to high school and embarking on a career in an early college facility. So there was some thought put into that. the decision is yours, of course, and we will honor whatever the board gives us direction for tonight. But I don't think the survey results were compelling enough, and I don't think they got enough rate of return for a lot of the folks that were asked to respond to the survey did not. So obviously it was not that big a decision for many of the kids and the parents in the school.
Well, I understand Crossroads. I mean, I've been hearing Crossroads in Iredell County for a long time even before this out here. This has been a Crossroads community, whatever. And like Mr. Page says, we do have a private school named the same thing. That could be confusing. But from what we were asking from last week, this does not, to me, this does not clarify the name change. This, to me, says, wait a minute, let's study this a little more, let's look at it a little longer, and I know everybody's always up against a time thing that they wanted to do that they didn't think of, whatever. But to me, that's what that says. Wait a minute, we need to study this and be sure this is what we want to do and get enough backing from the people that we know are more than 62 out there somewhere to be able to change the name. That's my opinion.
Well, nothing has been communicated with DPI as far as a name change, nor with the folks that help fund the early college through the grant. So if the board's direction for us is to start this process over, we'll be happy to do that.
Could the survey be extended to the, till we receive these results at the February board meeting? That way it'd give ample time for all these people to vote. And that, I mean, I don't think there's anybody who wants to keep VPAC there with that name, so, but we do need to be under the understanding what you do want to call this new format that they're going after. So I'm not against the new name. But I think if we're wanting to set a policy where the people that are involved establish that name, we need to get more data.
And I also think the fact is, we don't have $50,000 to pay a marketing consultant to come in here and give us, 8 names, that to choose from. I'm the same way. I'm sort of ambivalent with both of these names. I know the pros and cons on both of those. Neither one really turned me on as far as that goes, but I'll go with the wishes of the board as well.
And the staff did, work together to come up with some name options, and those were the two that they were kind of the prominent and prevalent names. So certainly they're in the middle of their recruitment cycle, going out and talking to middle schools. They can certainly continue to have that conversation, and we can put the VPAC on that, knowing that that there's going to be a proposed name change. On the application process. I think that runs typically into February, but they're currently in the process of that application process now. So they're communicating to the parents and the students at the middle school level that, the programming will be changing and expanding for VPAC, which I think is the most important piece, so that they know that there are going to be more options for the students when they get there.
One underlying issue that I've got with this whole dilemma, and it was one of the reasons I ran for school board, is there are policies. We have school board policies. And I wish the principals had been advised by the district administration or to know about that policy back in maybe the summer. So they would have been on board and ready to present with good data. I want this change to occur, but I want to support the principal with the name change, but I agree with the rest of my board members. We need to get the word out. We need to get good data back. But I want the district administration to be a little bit more proactive with making sure principals and other administrators, directors are following board policy. Okay.
And from my standpoint, I truly believe what the principal has done there, Ms. Eller, with Refocus, and the program is great. I think it's a great move. refocus the school is a good thing. I think they've looked at the data and everything. It's a shame that the name just doesn't seem to, nobody seems to be real thrilled over any of them. And some of the teachers I talked to and students don't seem real thrilled. A lot of students want to keep VPAC, but that's because they're already there, and I understand that. I just wonder did we open it up to students to come up with a name? Just the staff. I keep thinking there's something cool name out there for that school. I think I love where you're headed with it. And this is the second time since I've been on the board we've dealt with a school name change. And both times it's hard for us when you've got a school that's got a name, that name means something to somebody. And we take it very seriously because we don't want to come back next year and change it again. We want to make sure that it's a name that everybody likes. Like when the Career Center, there was names and arguments and everything. And then all of a sudden when somebody come up with cats, wow, that was it. You know, we hit a home run, but we certainly didn't get it in one try. So totally support the school, totally support what you're doing. Charles has a good idea. Maybe we just need to, and Anna both, that maybe we need to just take a step back and take our time on this. And I don't want to hurt your recruiting at all from that. I'm not sure how much a name is important in the recruiting or not, because I really believe in what you're doing, and I hope you take it that way.
Well, how about if we pick up on what Mr. James says, Mr. Page says too, if you can run this back through in a month. See, that's not our timeline. That's a timeline that's been set. See what you can do between now and next month, Cal meeting, so that we can be presented again with data and background information and everything that goes into the name change, so that we can all look at it and study it and come up with a better idea. Does that pick up on everybody?
I think that sounds like that summarizes the consensus of the board. And I think, again, I'm speaking on behalf of the board, I have heard nothing but positive comments about the aspect of redirection for that school. I mean, I think that's clear that the board's in support of that. But as has been said, names mean a lot to people, and it means a lot to the community. And I go on record as well saying that we need to make sure that we've done the best job we can do. And we may come back and you all may want to choose one of these two names, and I think the board would support that if we've got more data showing that more people have been involved in the decision. So this is a voting item listed on our agenda. If I'm not putting words in his mouth, I would ask Mr. Kelly maybe to make that suggestion in the form of a motion so that we can vote.
Let's make a motion that we table this until the next meeting.
Okay.
Make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
I made the motion. I'll make the motion. You want a second?
I can say it, but you make sure it's item V and it's item A, refocus for VPAC, so we make sure it's on the consent agenda correctly. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Any further discussion regarding that motion? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on then to our next item on the non-consent agenda, which again is a voting item, revised school improvement plans for the low-performing schools. Dr. Taylor.
Yes, Dr. Cash and members of the board, we discussed at our committee of the whole meeting that the school improvement plans schools that were identified as low-performing schools by the state were required to resubmit their school improvement plans, which they did. They got feedback from the state, and so based on that feedback, they have been working with their staff to revise and edit those school improvement plans, and those have now been posted. We've got a few little tweaks on a couple of them that we're still finishing up, but they do not have anything to do with the substantial. It's just some proofreading and editing issues on a couple of them. Once those have been approved by the board, it's required to be approved by the board, they will be resubmitted to the state for that approval. So we are here tonight partially to ask you to revise those or to approve those revised school improvement plans for those identified schools. And then I think there's also some information that Mr. Johnson's going to share on some additional components and requirements for those schools.
And again, we're assuming that the changes that were made in the plans are going to help bring those to where they need to be. That's correct?
Yes, that is correct. That feedback was received on December the 4th, and we had individual meetings with each one of those schools. Mr. Stuss, who works with a lot of our school improvement plans, and the EDs, the executive directors, met individually with those principals specifically regarding that feedback, and then reviewed those school improvement plans and provided feedback, ongoing feedback during that time frame. We do have 3 of those schools who have been identified by the state that will receive additional support from some state transformation teams. Those schools are Statesville Middle School, Troutman Middle School, and East Middle School. In addition to that, NB Mills has actually been receiving additional supports from the state K-3 literacy specialists since the beginning of the school year. So those are some additional supports and pieces in place for those individual schools as well.
So, board members, at your place, you should have a memo that is color-coded there with the yellow.
No, we don't have that. We got this one.
Copy of that. Just as a refresher, what we're dealing with under this item goes back to the work of the General Assembly when they instituted the A through F report card. When that plan came out, school systems all across North Carolina raised a lot of red flags. And our major concern was, with the way the proposal is written, it was going to shine a bright light on schools that have a lot of poverty. And that's exactly what it's done. So in our school system, we have 6 schools that are classified by the state as low-performing schools. And locally, we have chosen not to even use that term because the way the formula is written that is used to place a school on that list, the weight is towards total proficiency rather than individual student growth. It's an 80-20 formula. And what we have recommended from the very beginning is that that formula should be reversed, that we should be honoring the growth that is taking place in these schools. At a school like NB Mills, you're dealing with a lot of children that come from extreme poverty and have not had nearly the opportunities that children who come from more affluent families. And yet we are asking those kids to be competitive with their peers. It's almost impossible to catch those children up overnight. And so until the state of North Carolina recognizes that there's a lot of work to be done in working with children of poverty and putting extra resources in schools that do have high concentrations of poverty, we're choosing to look at these schools as our core schools, the schools that we want to focus on and give them as much collaboration and support as we possibly can. On the back of the memo is a list of the additional support that is being provided to each of these schools. This section of the agenda tonight is to talk about their school improvement plans. But we have been made aware of some additional provisions within these general statutes. As recently as last Friday and the week before we got out for the Christmas holidays, Tharrington and Smith has put together a training for school districts, and we have attended 2 of those sessions now. So each time we go to one of these trainings, we're picking up bits and pieces of the requirements of this legislation. You can go through that list and see the provisions that are being put in place to support these schools. In addition, as a superintendent, the legislation gives me the prerogative to move these principals out of these schools. At this point in the year, my recommendation to you is to not remove any of these principals. I would like to keep them there with the supports that we list for you on the back of that memo, and give these principals all the resources and the support that we can muster, and their teachers as well. So our recommendation for NB Mills, East Iredell Middle, Statesville Middle, Troutman Middle, West Iredell Middle, and Statesville High is on that front page of your memo. We recommend that we keep those principals in place throughout the remainder of the school year with a remediation plan. And we will be meeting with the staff at these schools next week, along with the principals, to explain some of the extra work that is going to be required of them to be in compliance with this law. I also want to call your attention to a second document. Do they have this one? This is one page of a PowerPoint that was shared with our principals last week. If North Carolina doesn't get a handle on this pretty soon and take a look at that formula for what determines what a low-performing school looks like, then you can see a list of other schools in our district that this time next year could be in this same boat. And so, you know, as I look at our state, North Carolina, and I see us trying to be competitive on a national level, I just really wonder sometimes if we're really doing ourselves any favor by creating an assessment model that is labeling them a lot of the schools in our state as low-performing schools, and it's all being done on the basis of a lot of poverty. Now we have been asked by the state if we would like to be part of a pilot project that would allow us to apply for charter-like flexibility for these low-performing schools. I have answered to the affirmative on that. I have said for a number of years that I think it's high time that we be given the same flexibility that charter schools have. And so we will be having a meeting Friday with some officials from DPI that we hope to get some explanation on what that process looks like. We've got to come up with what our plan would be should we be selected as one of the districts to be given that flexibility. But some of the things that I'm thinking of off the top of my head are calendar flexibility, flexibility with how we hire the staff in those schools, flexibility with the assessment model itself. So stay tuned for that, because we are aggressively pursuing this option of being given more flexibility for our schools that are labeled Ds and Fs.
Mr. Johnson, I would just like to provide some clarity with the slide that is shared, just so that you can make sure that you're aware of what those numbers are. So when you're looking at this slide, I know that it did not have talking points under it in your presentation. You can see the identification of our core schools in that far left-hand column. And what it's meant to show is that if the state is to change the grade point scale and make that a 10-point grade scale based on our 2014-15 data, those additional 6 schools would be added in. And if we still had a 15-point scale and we looked at our schools that exceeded growth and they just slid a little bit to even just meeting growth, they would have been added to this equation also, because the definition of a low-performing school under this statute is if you met or did not meet. The only way you could be a D or F school and not be deemed low-performing is if you exceeded growth. So again, that's where you take a school like NB Mills, where every teacher met growth. And because of where that proficiency level is, they have the label of being a low-performing school. If we were to consider that scenario and just added all of those schools to the pot, that is about 50% of our schools. And there are provisions in the legislation that define a low-performing district. And so that's just so that you kind of understand how the policy plays out when you're actually looking at the work that is being done in our schools across this district. And so those numbers under there are the free and reduced lunch percentages for each of those schools from March 2015. And then the number beside that is the ranking in the district from highest to lowest as far as our highest free and reduced lunch percentages going down. And so you can see if you were to take our top, our schools with the largest free and reduced lunch percentages, you're going to see practically every single one on this list outside of our alternative schools, which have a different set of rules, and I think one of our elementary schools.
I know the state changed, next year we're going to stay on a 15-point scale, is that correct? How long was that change for?
We don't know.
They said they would study it for 3 years, but beyond that, we don't know.
So this will be the second year we're on a 15-point? Because it was going to change after 1 year, correct?
Right, it
So
was
they've
originally going to
changed.
change. They said they would give it time to study.
Right.
I think that was one of the things that stood out to me the most. I think it's very helpful when you're going through the school improvement plans, you know, to have the narrative on there, which gives a demographic breakdown of where these schools are. I mean, I was reading through and, you know, 98% free and reduced, 58% free and reduced. I mean, it's just, you know, it really paints a picture to any outsiders who are wanting to know what is this school and what are their issues? And I think that very plainly lays it out for everyone to read. A lot of these free and reduced, when they come to the elementary school, they have no preschool education. You know, the kindergarten teachers are taking them, you know, cold off the street, teaching them how to stand in line and, you know, to behave and to sit down and to speak when appropriately. And that is a huge curve to overcome. So, you know, I was really impressed too with the different goals that each school has, you know, everything, I mean, your basic English, math, and science, but also differentiation and behavior goals as well. I just thought it was a lot of information.
So we're certainly glad to entertain any other questions that you may have, but the school improvement piece certainly would require a vote.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the revised plans of the student improvement plans for the core schools or for the low-performing schools.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, do we also need to vote on the, I believe you'd said we had to vote on the keeping of the principals. Is that
I think in the training that's being done by Tharrington and Smith, they do recommend that the board vote on
whether
the
to transfer the
superintendent's
principals or not, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we do not transfer any of the principals of our low-performing schools at this time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second not to transfer any principals from our low-performing schools at this time, as recommended by our superintendent.
For
discussion, Dr. Lassane.
For a matter of the record, the way it's actually written in statute, we would need that vote to be for each of those schools to have, you'll see in the far right-hand corner, it's denoted as a remediation plan. That's what that vote would need to reflect in order for us to send that on to the state board.
You said the motion needs to say we accept the remediation
It's not
plan?
so much do not transfer, but a remediation plan for each. That's the action.
Did they remain at their school sites with a remediation plan in place at this point in time?
Is that part of the general statute?
That's part of the general statute and state policy, State Board of Education policy.
Mr. Chairman, did you formally introduce this motion?
No, sir.
Okay, since the motion's not been formally introduced, we can properly change it. We will add to that to accept the remediation plan and not transfer.
Thank you.
Very good.
I have a question. I want to continue my thought. Okay, so the general statute says that the school boards have to vote on this, or is it solely on the recommendation of the district superintendent?
The superintendent has to recommend to the board has to then send that to the State Board of Education.
Okay, so it has to be board approved. Also, in the remediation plan, is there a timeline to reassess the principals and the schools, and what's the timeline?
We have asked that question, and right now, as interpretation of policy stands, this is a year-to-year thing based on the results for those schools. So we don't have that level of definition. The statute, you will find, is largely silent on what should be in the remediation plan.
And also, you said with this, you're adding more work to the staff. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, for the principals, definitely.
For the principals, and what about the classrooms, teacher, the staff?
I think you will see a trickle-down effect.
There will be coaches in 3 of those schools that will be working with them on improving their instructional strategies. So, that will be some additional training and things that could come as a result of that. We're actually meeting with those teams on Friday, so exactly what is contained within that support, we can answer that question probably better on February the 1st for those 3 specific schools.
I would just like I would like the district administration to consider to prioritize the added work to that classroom teacher. He or she has a lot on her plate, especially in these schools. You know that better than I do. So if you guys can be flexible and, teacher-friendly with this additional work, I hope I would encourage that.
We actually met with each of the principals previously and have talked with them about some of the additional components that are going to be falling on their plate, and there'll be a lot of additional components on their plate and ways that the district and/or other schools can help alleviate that and kind of give them some time back in some areas as well.
Thank you.
You make
Any
a point,
other
we had a motion and a second, and then we went back again. Could you clarify what we need to do here, Mr. Costi?
Yes, I think Mr. Page amended his motion to add the acceptance of the remediation plan to the motion, which was originally to not transfer any of the principals. So I think that what Dr. Lassane is saying, that both of those components are necessary to be approved by the board.
Clear up the motion then.
Say what?
Clear up the motion then.
The motion is that none of the principals from the low-performing schools be transferred, and that the remediation plans at each of those schools be accepted.
That's your motion.
That is correct.
My second would be.
And it was
What you
seconded.
said.
It's not been introduced yet, so it's not actually on the table until the chairman introduces
Want
it.
to do that?
Chairman has to do that.
Chairman.
Yes, we have a motion made to the effect Mr. Page said, and Mr. Cute confirmed and elaborated. Okay, so we need a second to that motion. Second. We have a second by Mr. Kelly. So at this point, is there any further discussion regarding the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we have the copier contract recommendation. Again, this was on the agenda for Ms. White. Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Dr. Cash. Last Monday night, Melissa White did present her proposal for our copier contract, which is ending its 5-year contract period. The current vendor is Toshiba. We have been with that company for 10 years. Their contract will end June the 30th of 2016. Melissa did request proposals on providing copier services from other vendors. A review committee was formed to hear and evaluate the proposals. There was a matrix, and scores were assigned to each of the vendors accordingly. We recommend that the board approve a 5-year contract with Toshiba to provide copy services for all of the district sites, all 36 schools in our office buildings. This will begin in July of 2016. Toshiba did propose the lowest cost to the district. The total projected cost of this contract is $352,000. As part of the negotiations with Toshiba, they have agreed to replace many of our machines that are aged, and they also did agree to readjusting the per copy cost, which will realize an annual savings for the district of approximately $125,000. So we would like to bring this proposal and ask that you award this contract to Toshiba.
Open for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion that we enter the contract with copy service contract proposal for 5 years with Toshiba.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Page. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, that motion carries. Next, we have item D, under the non-consent agenda, the memorandum of understanding regarding the lease for part of Ebenezer with the Iredell County Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Mr. Johnson, members of the board. You have reviewed this MOU at our CAL meeting. It is my recommendation that we accept the MOU with the Sheriff's Department. We've been leasing space to the Sheriff's Department for the last 3-4 years, I believe, and they have reduced their footprint at that site, and so this reflects the square footage being used at the same cost that they've been paying per square foot. I would recommend that we accept the memorandum of understanding. It has been vetted by Mr. Coutet. Be glad to answer any questions.
Floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the MOU regarding the lease of the Ebenezer with the Iredell County Sheriff's Department.
I second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion, in favor of approving the memorandum of understanding regarding the lease for part of Ebenezer with the Iredell County Sheriff's Department, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Next, we have the final item on the non-consent agenda, the superintendent's evaluation. Mr. Page and Ms. Bonham.
Well, you've had a week to look over, actually, you've had a week and a month to look over the superintendent's evaluation. Mr. Page and I got our heads together, spent many hours talking on the phone, sending emails back and forth, trying to determine what is a better evaluation tool for our superintendent. And we believe we've come up with a pretty good solution here and would love to hear your comments.
A whole lot easier than what the state had, I can tell you that. It's easier to read. Thank you.
It's very user-friendly.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was important.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's still going to capture what we need to know.
And I do think if we get to where we're using it, you know, and we may have some addendums or we can tweak it here and there, but anyway, it's a good jumping off spot.
We do need a motion to approve this instrument to use as our superintendent's evaluation. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we use this new evaluation for the superintendent that has been presented by Mr. Page and Ms. Bonham.
We have a motion, Mr. Kelly and a second from Ms. Haynes. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We now come to time for our meeting for public comment. We have 3 speakers who've signed up to speak to us tonight. Again, before I call their names to come forward, I will just mention again our general ground rules for the public comment portion. We ask that the speaker come forward to the podium, introduce yourself, and introduce the topic as well, so the audience knows clearly what you're speaking about. And then I'll ask Ms. McCarrier to time the comments, and we ask that each speaker, out of fairness to everyone and to be consistent from one meeting to the next, that each speaker only speak 3 minutes or less. Again, this is a time for the board to hear your comments. It's not a time that we generally respond back, but they will take those comments and use them for discussion purposes at a later time. So the first speaker is Anthony Turman.
My name is Anthony Turman. I'm here to speak in reference to the Chinese Student Exchange Program. Superintendent Brady Johnson, members of the Iredell-Statesville School Board, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening concerning this program. I am Anthony Turman, president of the Statesville branch in NAACP. Our mission is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of all persons, and to eliminate racial hatred and discrimination. A top priority for the NAACP is to ensure a quality education for all students, and we have been a staunch ally and supporter of the school system in its efforts to provide that quality education to all students, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and social economic status. We have done in the past, we will continue to support and assist the school system in its implementation and administration of ideas and strategies that will improve academic performance of all students and close the achievement gap between minority and economically disadvantaged students and their white counterparts. We are committed to do all that we can to achieve that goal. Recently, the Iredell-Statesville school system has launched an effort to implement and administer a Chinese student exchange program. While we agree there are many benefits to be gained by students, both foreign and American, through interacting and learning about each other's history, customs, and culture, we stand firmly against this program as it has been tainted with racism and discrimination. This is evidenced by Dan Freeman, logistics coordinator, who indicated in his email that Chinese parents would not host families that are Muslim, Japanese, gay, or African American. This statement and attitude is undoubtedly in violation of the United States Title VII Civil Rights Law and contradictory of the values we continue to strive for as Americans. It also creates the impression that the feelings and rights of people who identify with those groups specified in Dan Freeman's email have not been considered and are being sacrificed for the monetary gain the school system will obtain through implementation of this program. The Statesville branch in NAACP demand that the Iredell-Statesville School Board abandon this exchange program immediately and explore alternatives that do not discriminate against anyone or any group that adheres to the laws that require all Americans to be treated fairly and justly. Thank you for your consideration of our demand, and we look forward to your prompt response. And, Mr. Chairman, I have a copy of my statement that I'll leave here if you so desire.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Ms. Beth Pakman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. My name is Beth Pakman, and the reason for my speaking this evening is that I have two celebrations to share tonight. This morning, I spent 3 hours of my time at South Iredell High School helping to proctor the oral exams for the DP program students. Over 100 students during this week will be given a photograph, a piece of paper and a pencil, and 15 minutes to prepare, at which point they are then asked by their teacher one-on-one to converse with them fluently and tell them everything they possibly can about that picture. Can I ask real quickly, how many of you were fluent in a foreign language at age 17? I didn't think so. I mean, I am very, very impressed by the ability of these students. It was really wonderful to interact with them today. They were nervous, but they were ready and prepared to tackle this. And I think it's really impressive that over 100 of our students are able to do that. The second thing that I wanted to share, and many of you were at the event today, I attended the Mooresville South Iredell Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards Ceremony. There were 3 keynote speakers today, all NASCAR industry specialists: Kelly Earnhardt Wilson, Doug Yates of Roush Yates Engines, and Tim Cendrick of Penske Racing. They managed to share that over 25,000 jobs in North Carolina are related to NASCAR. Over 90 teams are housed here in Mooresville, and over 1,000 businesses in Mooresville are all related in some way, shape, or form to NASCAR. What was really interesting to me is that it was a panel discussion, and it was very open and honest answers. And they were asked why had they brought their companies, or why had they chosen to keep their companies in Mooresville. And unequivocally, the first answer out of all 3 of their mouths was because of the strong school system that we have here in Iredell County. And I was very amazed by that presentation because none of them knew that they were going to be asked that question, and that was the first response out of their heart and off the top of their mind. I did want to just say that the more time I spend involved in Iredell-Statesville schools, I am more and more amazed each and every day at what Mr. Johnson and his staff accomplish. So thank you very much for hearing me out this evening.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Brian Shoemaker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Johnson, members of the board. The topic I'd like to discuss is the role of the school board. First of all, I'd like to thank you for getting the school board meetings back online. I can't attend this meeting every month, try to, but it's not always possible, so I rely on those to be able to watch it. Mr. Chairman, last month during the public comment period, the board was admonished to, quote, fight the conservatives. I'm not quite sure what conservatives have done to warrant this action, but I did find the comments quite intriguing. Mr. Chairman, as you and many on the board recall, that the school board has done a lot of things that I would consider conservative. They've taken some positive conservative positions over the years. As a matter of fact, back in August of 2014, the board was responsible for saving the taxpayers about $32 million. You guys said no to an unnecessary middle school in Mooresville. In 2013, this board said no to a very controversial sex education curriculum that would have taught, among other things, how to make condoms fun and pleasurable to ninth graders. This board also chose to save and not spend foolishly millions of dollars in federal bailout or ARA money back during the Great Recession. Mr. Chairman, that same speaker also told you all that the role of the superintendent, the role of the board is to support the superintendent and to not ask questions or second guess what he puts in front of you. I know that you can't agree with that. If you do, then your constituents don't need your services. Let's turn off the lights and go home. The board should not unnecessarily question or be hateful to the superintendent, but their role is to ask questions and to make policy. That's how it works. Friends, the actual role of the school board is pretty simple in my mind. The school board should be the educational watchdog for the communities and the taxpayers, and they should ensure that students get the best education possible for the use of the money spent. Furthermore, I'll go on to say that the direction and the philosophy of the school system should reflect the community. There's been a lot of talk lately about the number of students not enrolled in public school. I would encourage the board to take a more conservative approach to education, both fiscally and socially. I think you might be surprised about how enrollment numbers would go up and your retention numbers would level off. In the few seconds I have remaining, I'd also like to give you congratulations for coming up with an evaluation instrument for the superintendent. The state of North Carolina spent millions of dollars for that. You guys did it with 2 school board members, and it didn't cost you a dime. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our list of speakers who actually signed to speak tonight. For any who came in later that would like to speak, I'll open up an opportunity. Again, is there any member of the audience that would like to make comment to the school board? If not, I'll ask if any board members that would like to make comments tonight. If not, we'll move on to the superintendent comments. Mr. Johnson.
Dr. Cash, members of the board, the document that's being passed down your way is a little research project that Mitchell Community College did recently, the fall of 2015. From time to time, I hear folks express concern that a lot of the students that are attending Mitchell Community College are not prepared for the rigors of work at the community college level. So I'm really glad that Mitchell took it upon themselves to do this study. This goes back over the last 5 years to 2011, and you can look across that top line there and look at the enrollment head count. In 2011, Mitchell enrolled 3,811 students. Now that number has dropped as the economy has gotten better and less kids were going to community college. The second line shows you the average age of those students. And for members of the audience that don't have this memo, in 2011, the average age of an enrolling student at Mitchell Community College was 26.3 years. And this fall, 2015, the average age was 23.3 years of age. So a lot of those students have been out of high school for a considerable length of time. The developmental levels is in Table 2 for students that needed remediation in English and reading and mathematics. And I was really tickled to see the results of this because quite to the contrary of what I had heard, the number of students needing remediation has fallen drastically at Mitchell Community College. Again, looking at English and reading in the fall, of 2011, there were 564 students that came in that fall that needed remediation before they could start their college courses. This fall, that number had dropped to 130. And in math, the number fell from 822 in the fall of 2011. This year it was 227. And again, that next line shows you the average age of those students, which is well beyond the threshold for graduating from high school. At the bottom, you see the trend data, and the trend data looks really good. So I would just like to give a shout out to our teachers and our principals who are doing a great job and are focusing on our commitment to help all of our students be college and career ready when they walk across our stages at graduation. The other item that I'd like to share with you tonight is we have a very unique opportunity coming up on Monday, January the 25th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Unity Center, and the school system has agreed to host this. We have been in collaboration with the City of Statesville, the Statesville Branch NAACP, and the Statesville Chamber of Commerce. The Human Relations Commission meets regularly, and this fall, in some of our discussions, I think we were all taken aback by some of the headlines that we're seeing throughout the country, whether it be the Charleston shooting that took place last summer or the story from Columbia, South Carolina, where the female student was pulled from her desk by a school resource officer. There's just lots and lots of bad news all over the country. And so the question was put forward before the Statesville Human Relations Commission, what can we do as a community to make sure that our community is doing all that we can to avoid those types of incidents taking place where we live? And then secondly, should those types of events take place, what will our community response be? So on the evening of Monday, January the 25th, these four groups, again, the Iredell-Statesville Schools, the City of Statesville, the Statesville Branch NAACP, and the Statesville Chamber of Commerce, is sponsoring a community forum, and we're inviting all interested citizens to come in that night and engage in an open discussion and dialogue about how we can prevent issues like this from coming to our community, and should they occur, how will we as a community respond? So I hope that evening that members of the Board of Education can be there as well. Dr. Cash, I hear you loud and clear on the board not responding to speakers, but I feel compelled tonight for the superintendent to respond to the presentation from our members of the NAACP. I wished we'd had an opportunity to talk about this concern one-on-one. Maybe this should have been a topic for the Human Relations Commission in a few weeks. We have entered into a partnership with Tower Bridge International, which is a group of folks that are very interested in increasing understanding and collaboration between our country and China. And their desire is to bring students here to the United States for a year of study. And when we entered into this partnership with that company, I did talk to a superintendent in California that had done business with this company, and I got a good report. He even told me that their homestays reflected their community. So we did proceed with this partnership, and as late as last week, we held an open meeting at Statesville High School where we solicited members of our community to serve as host families for these students. Last week, we had not met our goal of finding residences for these 145 students and 10 teachers. But we had a great turnout last week at Statesville High School, and I won't to say much to my surprise, but it's really not a surprise. the folks that came to our rescue on this and who did step up and agree to host our families turned out to be members of our churches in the community. And I would still like to think that we as a community can prove the naysayers wrong on this. I'm a lifelong resident of this community, and I've seen the community during its high points and its low points. And I like to think of us as a community that can meet together and work out any obstacle or problem. But what I was told was that there were families in the minority community that once they heard about the email and the negativity associated with that they made a determination that they would not apply. And if that's the case, then the dark side wins. The negative people win. What would have happened if James Meredith had never applied to get into the University of Mississippi? But he did apply. And so I would again say to my friends in the minority community, apply and let's prove the naysayers wrong. Because this program is open to all. And we've said that on our literature. We've said that any time that we have spoken out in public about this. I think this is a unique opportunity for us as a community to engage a group of kids who are coming to us from a communist country, a closed society, where everybody is told what to say and what to think. And as a community, we have a golden opportunity here to show these children and those teachers what a democratic society looks like, what a diverse society looks like. We have an opportunity here to show these visitors the rewards of the free enterprise system. I'm told by other school officials that have engaged in these types of partnerships that when these children come here and they walk into a public library or a school library and they see thousands of books on the walls, that many of these children are taken aback when they're told you can go select any book that you want to read and nobody's going to tell you not to read that book. Isn't that exciting that we get to share that with these kids? I'm told by folks that have engaged in this partnership that many times when these children come here to the United States for their visit, they're blown away by the prosperity of the free enterprise system. And they can't believe that a society where you're not told what to do, that your freedom can generate this type of prosperity. So we're very, very excited about this. And again, I would encourage every member of our community that does believe in the better angels of our community to apply for this program, and let's prove the naysayers wrong. Thanks, Dr. Cash.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for tonight's meeting. I think good thought-provoking comments from everyone tonight, and we appreciate those. We have some announcements of upcoming dates that the school system will be observing. January 18th, it's a holiday. January 19th and 20th will be teacher work days. And February 1st will be our next committee of the whole meeting here at the ADR Education Center at 6 p.m. February 8th will then be the Board of Education meeting here at the Iredell County Government Center. Leska, this time, if we have reason for a closed session?
Yes, we have a couple personnel items.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel
Mr. Chairman,
items.
before you go into closed session, also Monday, which is January the 18th, we have the Martin Luther King 7 to 9 breakfast at the Civic Center. I believe we have a table, don't we, Mr. Johnson? That hadn't been brought up yet for the board, but it is this Monday, 7 to 9 breakfast at Civic Center for the Martin Luther King breakfast.
According to the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, I make a motion that the board enter into closed session to discuss personnel issue and to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. Have a motion, and a second, to go into closed session to discuss personal issues and preserve attorney-client privilege. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll move into closed session. Again, thank you for your attendance.
Do we have a minute to go visit?
Saban wins tonight, that he will consider one of the greatest coach.
Hey,
He will replace Bear Bryant.
We're back in open session. I'll ask if there's any business that needs to be transpired, motion to be made regarding personnel discussion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept, do we need to go by the name or by the agenda item I? The person, Emily Reynolds, thank you. Emily Reynolds, accept her on the report that was presented as Exhibit I, or I believe, or whatever it was.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second, and for those that, in the audience, this is an EC teacher, to be hired, so, I think the motion is to add her to our personnel, report, as approved. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion we adjourn.
Could I say something before you adjourn? You received, I think Kelly sent to you the answer in that lawsuit, and if you didn't understand what that was, basically they rolled over and said, I think it's just going to be a discussion of how much money, quite honestly, because everything they said, we don't really need to answer this, but, or we don't oppose it. So I think that's going to be next. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think Mr. Johnson and Kelly